EJ, stand by. I want to bring in also Michael Walron Jr., the senior pastor at First Corinthian Baptist Church here in Harlem, New York. Sir, thanks for being with me as we look at this and the significance timing-wise with the unrest and the racial tensions happening especially in Charlotte, but also, as EJ was just talking about, the legacy of President Obama as the first African-American president and dedicating this.
No, I think it is absolutely timely that President Obama would be the President of the United States during the time of the dedication of what is a monumental space in American history. I was reflecting on this and I thought of the fact that the truth of the matter is the foundation for this museum was laid in 1619. And in all these years of unrest and struggle and slavery and turmoil were quietly in some ways building to this moment. And the truth of the matter is you cannot talk about African-American history without talking about American history. It is almost synonymous because at every stage of the development of this country, African-Americans have played a critical and vital role. And we can't overlook that. And this museum says that history is important. It says that history is vital to this country, and it marks it in a particular interesting time in our history.
What were the more powerful messages that you heard from the president in his dedication speech?
I think the idea that this history is filled with discomfort. I think that has to be named. Sometimes I think our country has a hard time confronting that discomfort, confronting the painful parts of its history. We try to gloss over it or ignore it. But you cannot talk about this country without talking about the parts that are bitter and bruising and bloody and painful. And so I value the fact that the president acknowledged this history is uncomfortable. It will cause people to cringe. It will cause people to sometimes feel bad about the truths of our history. And the truth is that we can never move forward as a people. We cannot progress, especially in these kind of critical and in some ways divisive times, without being truthful and honest about who we are. And the discomfort is par for the course.
And he said that is because of the museum and because of that discomfort. In the words of the president, he said that we will be able to learn and grow and make the nation more perfect. And do you think that's something that especially in communities like Tulsa, like Charlotte, that's the message that needs to be heard and spread?
I think it's one of the messages that could be spread in terms of our need to begin to see our common humanity, our common goals as Americans. It's just one of the messages. But at the same time, as we dedicate and lift up this museum and we acknowledge the contributions of African Americans in our history, Tulsa and Charlotte and Baton Rouge and Minnesota, and the list goes on and on, reminds us that there has been progress, but there are still many issues that we have to address. And even though this museum chronicles the contribution of African Americans, the truth is that in many quarters of our country, African Americans are still struggling to have our humanity acknowledged in spite of dehumanizing efforts.
Well, it's good to have you with us because originally we were supposed to have you talking about the new video that's been released to NBC News of the shooting in Charlotte, and when you consider that is the headline, that is what we were originally supposed to talk about, but fitting that there is so much of the president's message that really can umbrella over the tensions that we're seeing.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we cannot negate the significance of this moment, and I don't think we can highlight it enough. Again, this museum symbolizes a lot of hard work by those who fought to see it come to fruition. It also speaks to the history of African Americans that we cannot ignore. I celebrate. I celebrate inside. I'm happy. I'm excited when I think about this. But I don't let this moment overshadow that there's still much work to be done in this country. And so here's the thing. It is possible to celebrate and be cognizant of the work we still have to do. And so although many around the country and on those who are gathered in D.C. pause to celebrate this historic moment, at the same time, there's a shadow cast in certain spaces in our country that reminds us there's still work to be done, and we're still seeking truth. We're still seeking to be acknowledged as part of the fabric of this country. There are still people who believe that African Americans value and their lives have less value than others. And so these are the harsh realities that confront us in the midst of celebration. And it does not undermine the celebration, but it reminds many of us, many African Americans, that even as we celebrate, we have to, as they say in the church, watch and pray.
Right. Watch watch and pray, and I'm sure that'll be part of your message tomorrow at the First Corinthian Baptist Church there in Harlem, where you are a pastor.